Welcome back to the Slice, everybody. Montreal is in absolute chaos right now with rain and seeds falling early after the transition from the French Open conditions at the Olympics. And Cincinnati draw is out. The Cincinnati Open is in a little bit of a new branding, and we're going to break down the draw there where Alcaraz is back, but there's still the quarterfinals and further on to be played up in Montreal. So there's this kind of overlap this year. We're going to break down the results so far in Montreal and the draw in Cincinnati. We're going to get deep into it all. Thanks for being here. This is The Slice presented by Betway. Let's get stuck in. Okay, welcome back. Thanks for being here. If you've been following the last few days here from The Slice, I was in Montreal since last Saturday, giving you updates from the ground. So, yeah, that was a great time. Great experience at the Montreal tournament, the Omnium Bank National in Montreal. And yeah, thoughts there from that tournament were it is a great venue. I think it's one of the best venues that you could go to for viewing, player practices. Both stadiums are really great and not too big and pretty personal. I was literally standing at the top of the center court central for a bunch of the matches, and there's no like delay in sound, and you could see if the ball was in or not. So I just thought it was an elite venue and great tournament. Shout out to Tennis Canada for giving us an accreditation. We appreciated that, and it was a great time. So yeah, shout out also to all of you. There was a bunch of people who came up to me in Montreal saying, "Hey, Stephen from The Slice, love your show." So it was great to meet you. We had Alex Tennis, a few other people, Dave. We had Lance Lawrence, a bunch of other names that I can't remember right off the top of my head, but shout out for doing that. Appreciate it. It's good to know, that you guys are actually out there at the tournaments. These aren't just YouTube internet numbers. You guys are real tennis fans, and we're talking about tennis. So that's pretty cool. Yannick Sinner is still up in Montreal trying to get that title. Here's a picture of the court central that I was talking about, just a sweet venue. And the tournament, though, has been plagued since I left, essentially. What happened is I was there, everyone was there. A lot of, Alcaraz, Musetti, and Djokovic were the main players not there. And then essentially most everyone who was at the Olympics ended up losing really early in Montreal because that transition from clay to hard proves to be very difficult. And the balls played a big factor in that. So we'll get into what the players were telling me about the conditions there in Montreal, how I think it's going to affect the different players that are still in the draw. And then we'll look at the Cincinnati draw after that, after we look at the Montreal results so far. So, yeah. So what's been happening? So I tweeted out earlier today that many of the top players who played the Olympics lost early in Montreal, including Felix Auger-Aliassime, Tommy Paul, Stefano Tsitsipas, Daniil Medvedev, Taylor Fritz, and Jack Draper. Those are the big names at the Montreal Masters 1000, and a lot of them lost early. And I thought it was interesting what Thanasi Kokkinakis said to me. He said, this was Tommy Paul. What Tommy Paul said to me after his first round win before his second round loss to Nakashima. Tommy said, it's very, very tough to switch from the French Open conditions at the Olympics here to Montreal. And these balls are like little rubber rockets. They are very hard to control, especially coming down from slow clay. So it's tough to say that I felt very comfortable, but I knew at the same time his opponent, Darderi from Italy, was struggling with the same thing. He came from the same conditions. They literally played each other in Paris last week. So that for him, they're both struggling with the change, and Tommy Paul's the better player. So he came out in that one. But then Tommy Paul played Brandon Nakashima after that, who wasn't at the Paris Olympics, and he ended up losing because a lot of these players were saying that the balls in Montreal were flying. Daniil Medvedev had a great quote about the balls. He said he loved them. He was so happy to see these balls because they're lighter and they seem to be faster. So guys, for guys like him who play precise and don't hit the ball as huge, he felt like it gave him extra put away power. And he hadn't seen balls like that on tour, he said, for like 3 seasons. So he was really happy. But a lot of those players struggle to get the ball down into the court and to control their games. So I think that's why we saw a lot of these top players in Montreal lose early because they just played in the Olympics at the French Open. at Roland Garros, and then it's a huge change coming to Montreal. So I thought that was interesting. Hopefully you did well. Darren Cahill, Yannick Sinner's coach, said that same thing to me. I kind of already said this in the last show in Montreal, so sorry for repeating myself, but if you didn't watch that one, these are the things you need to know. Darren Cahill said that, historically in Montreal, players have found it hard to feel the ball there. And then especially with this updated Wilson US Open Series ball, it's different this year. The manufacturers make new versions of them every year. It's not always the same. And yeah, I think with the windier conditions up there, and lots of rain they've had, it's just wild. Players are struggling to find their range. And that's why we've seen more upsets, I think. So a guy like Korda, for example, who won Washington last week, didn't play the Olympics. He's doing great in Montreal, as we'll see here. So this is the quarterfinal draw that you can still see. So Sinner will play Rublev, and they're behind because there was like a flash flood essentially in Montreal. So I think all of yesterday got wiped out. No tennis was played, and it's raining right now, I believe, in Montreal. So there's some matches getting delayed. But the quarterfinal setup right now is essentially Sinner versus Rublev. That makes sense. That was the setup from the beginning there on that quarter. Then you got Arnaldi, unseeded, versus Nishikori, who's made it through a few rounds, through 3 matches, which is just awesome for him. And you got Poprin, who, if we back it up a little bit, Poprin beat Dimitrov, and then Rinderknech versus Hurkacz is still getting played, with Hurkacz already winning today earlier in the round of 32 against Kokkinakis. So that was like, there's been all these delays. People are trying to get caught up. It's pretty crazy. So then you got Sebastian Korda makes the quarterfinals. That's big for him because he made he won the tournament in Washington. He gets a walkover through Ruud. Not sure what was happening with Ruud there. Korda beat Fritz, who's another guy who played in the Olympics and now came to Montreal and struggled. So Korda is through to the quarterfinals there, and he will play Alexander Zverev, who just beat Holger Rune. So yeah, a little bit of a strange quarterfinals there. It's pretty open for a Masters 1000. Obviously, we've seen that before in Montreal because Djokovic skips it almost every year. And we saw Pablo Carreño Busta winning it 2 years ago. Sinner won it last year. He's the defending champion. He's still trying to defend it, and yeah, I think he's looking pretty good. So that's a tough match. Obviously, him versus Rublev. That's a tough quarterfinal. I think Sinner is a favorite there. People have been bringing up his record. He's literally lost 1 match all year on hard courts. So he is the hard court best player in the world right now, as far as I'm concerned, until proven differently, which could happen can't really happen here because Alcaraz or Djokovic isn't here. But in Cincinnati, if Alcaraz and Sinner play in the final, that'll be interesting to see on a historically quick surface there. And then obviously if Djokovic plays the US Open, then we could see, wherever the draw falls, Sinner, Alcaraz, Djokovic, kind of showing who's the best player currently right now on the hard courts. But as far as I'm concerned, right now, that's still Yannick Sinner. So, yeah. So, Arnaldi versus Nishikori is interesting. Who did Arnaldi beat? He beat Davidovich Fokina. And before that, he beat Khachanov. So he snuck through there a little bit, got a couple good wins. But Nishikori, if you look at what he's been doing, they don't show this. I'm going crazy here, but his record so far at this year was, he's struggling to get any type of consistency on the main tour. He's playing challengers, and then after his first round win, I was able to talk to him and get the sense of how much this meant to him. He beat Borges in the round of 16. Let's look back at it. He beat Tsitsipas in the round of 32. That was a massive win, obviously. And then he beat Mickelson in the first round. So that first round win, that was a big battle, 3 sets. He looked so relieved after that. And I talked to him, and I saw him in the scrum afterwards. And I asked him, where's your level of belief still at? Because obviously he's a Grand Slam finalist. He's one of the, top 10 for a long, long time. And I said, other players like Andy Murray and Milos Raonic, I said those names, they've said they wouldn't be playing if they didn't feel like they could compete with the best. And that's why literally Andy Murray stopped. And he said, yeah, I still have belief. And he said how Milos Raonic is actually one of his best friends on tour. and they've had similar injury struggles, so they kind of it sounds to me like they've had some camaraderie based on their journey. They're both part of that lost generation that we call them. Just really just getting dominated by the big three or big four. So it's cool to see Nishikori. He's not a big guy. When I'm standing beside him, I'm like just as tall or taller than him, and he's not super thick, but he's a beast out there when he plays good. I know Dominic in Australia will, if you're watching this, you'll be loving Nishikori having a run here in Montreal. Yeah, and it's just, I think for any tennis fan, that's great to see. So Nishikori gets through Tsitsipas, gets through Borges, and yeah, now we'll play Arnaldi, which is, you got to think that's a very winnable match for him with the form he's playing and with his pedigree. Can he make a semifinals here in Montreal and get a crazy amount of points for his comeback? That will go crazy for his ranking. So that will really push him up the rankings, get him into more things, make him not have to use that protected ranking. So that's a cool story from Montreal, I think. So Poprin, he's also playing good. He just beat Dimitrov, who I thought had a great chance to do better here. It was a tiebreak in the second set. Dimitrov seemed a little bit in control of the match, and then Poprin pulls it out, and then maybe has more gas in the tank. So Dimitrov wouldn't love that result. He'll be looking to do better in Cincinnati. And then, yeah, we've got Zverev coming through. Runa was hoping to interview him there in Montreal, but was not allowed to, was not given the opportunity. But I would love to talk to him about where he feels like his game is at. He's struggled with the wrist injury now, coming back from that. But he's been ranked higher before, and now he's kind of in a bit of a lull after getting that Paris victory in 2022. 2023 was not his best year, bit of a flattening out. So it's going to be interesting to see like what levers he can pull in his game to get back to being like on the challenging level with Sinner, Alcaraz, Musetti. That's like where he should be, and he's really kind of not there right now. But that's okay. There's different ebbs and flows in a career, isn't there? So as far as predictions, I honestly think Korda could get through Zverev. Zverev played in Paris. He said he was sick. He said he was also sick in Montreal while he was there. I was like, thanks, bro. You're just, getting us all sick. Korda's playing very well, so that's going to be a tough match. And then I guess we don't even have Popper set. He's going to play the winner of Hurkacz and Rinderknech when they finish. So I think Hurkacz should get through Rinderknech, but then he's played 2 matches in one day. Can he get through Popperin? If he can, then he's dangerous with these balls for sure. Anyways, let's go take a look at Cincinnati. How about that? There's the draw. There's the new logo. They are doing in Cincinnati. They've done like a rebrand. So it's not the Western and Southern Open anymore. It's the Cincinnati Open since 1899. And they've got new colors. They've got new setup. And yeah, that's an awesome tournament as well. I mean, I've been there before. It was actually the first tournament I went to when I was starting the slice in 2017. We interviewed Brad Gilbert. We talked about, I think Dimitrov won it that year, actually beating Kyrgios in the final in 2017. Kyrgios beat Rafa Nadal earlier in that tournament. That was a crazy experience. It's just another great tournament for fan experience and viewing. So let's look at the draw. The draw, as far as the potential quarterfinals matches, we've got Sinner on the top, and we've got Rublev would be his quarterfinal matchup. This is another smaller draw than Indian Wells, Miami. This is the 64-player draw. You got to love it. Sinner, Rublev in the top quarter, Zverev, Dimitrov in the next quarter, Hurkacz, Medvedev in the next quarter, and Rude and Alcaraz in the next quarter. So that's right. Carlitos Alcaraz is back after partying with his boys on a yacht after taking that L in the Olympic final. You saw that. He hated it, but he went off and got refreshed, skipped Montreal, and now he's back here in Cincinnati trying to get a W. With Novak Djokovic not here, Alcaraz made the final last year, lost in it. Can he get it done this year? We'll have to wait and see. So let's look at Sinner's quarter. So Sinner will be on the top unless he gets injured in Montreal. Who do you got in there? You got Hugo Humbert and you got Taylor Fritz as the other seeded players, 11 and 13. You got Brandon Nakashima getting a wild card, which is very deserved right now. He beat Tommy Paul up in Canada. And you got Arthur Fils. You got Giovanni Pesci Pericard huge serve. Got to see that in person. He is an absolute unit. Definitely can be refined a bit with the rest of his game. He's got a one-handed backhand. It's pretty crazy. But he's a monster. You got Griekspoor, Giron, Baez, Jordan Thompson. So decent quarter there. Not easy. Not as bad as it could be, I don't think, either. Zhizhen Zhang. So yeah, that top quarter center is, he'll play either Griekspoor or a qualifier or lucky loser or something else. And then he could play Hugo Humbert in the third round. So yeah, these 64-player draws, nothing's easy. No easy starts here for these. Next quarter is Zverev quarter. He's got Karen Khachanov unseated in there, Sorundalo unseated, Max Purcell with the wild card, Thomas Machak unseated, PCB, the protected ranking. You got Korda and Shelton and Riley Opelka. Shelton's going to play Riley Opelka in the first round. That's crazy. That might be the biggest serving matchup in the history of tennis. Like, what's a bigger serving matchup than that in the history of tennis? I don't know if it gets any bigger. So that's a crazy first round matchup. Holy smokes, USA for real. Thomas Martin Etcheverry, Matteo Arnaldi, Marojan, and Dimitrov. So yeah, another solid, dense quarter. You gotta love it. Pablo Carreño Busta versus Korda round 1. Khachanov versus Sorundalo round 1. I mean, it's just great matches all around. So that's the top half. The bottom half we got Medvedev, Hurkacz quarter. Medvedev could play Mario Navone. So Medvedev does get a bye. So the top players all still get, top 8 players, I want to say, all still get buys in the first round. So good for them. Medvedev could either play Lehechka or Navone. And Medvedev's going to be a little on edge because losing early in Montreal, he did not love that. He thought he would love the balls. He thought he'd love the conditions there, and didn't work out for him. So Alejandro Davidovich Fokina got him. So, and he's right there again. He could play him actually in his second match. But Lorenzo Mussetti's back in the draw. It's a 14th seed. Tommy Paul's also in that corner at the 10 seed. Tabilo, Darderi, Kecmanovic. So that's an interesting one. Tiafo. Yeah, every quarter's just got dense talent in the inside of it. And Medvedev's quarter there. Hurkacz is difficult on these hard courts. Lehechka or Navone. Lehechka is probably a bit more difficult, but you think Medvedev's got to be good there. And then, Musetti or Jerry or Tiafo or Davidovich Fokina. It's tough. It's tough out there, people. It's not easy, as you know. And then the last quarter, Alcaraz versus Ruud. Alcaraz could play either Gael Monfils or Alexei Poprin. And it's going to be interesting to see how Alcaraz adjusts to the conditions after playing on clay. So he went grass, winning Wimbledon, clay, losing the finals of the Olympics, and now on to hard in essentially 3 weeks. So that's a really crazy route there for him. So is he on upset alert? Could he just lose early to one of these guys? Alexei Poprin's still playing in Montreal, looking good. So that's going to be interesting. Matteo Berrettini with the wild card. He'll play Holger Rune in the first match there, which is crazy for him. And then Stefanos Tsitsipas is in there. We'll play Jan-Lennard Struff first. Tsitsipas allegedly will be out without his father. So in Montreal, it was captured in a scrum post-match that Tsitsipas was pissed off with his father. They were arguing during the match, and he's now announced afterwards that they've broken up again. He won't be coaching him. So we'll see who the new coach, if there is a new one, in Cincinnati will be. But yeah, I think it's a big consensus in the tennis world that Tsitsipas is no longer playing at the level of his potential right now. And it would be really great to see him get a coach who can help get there again, because he should be challenging for majors, winning them. And he hasn't been really close in the last few years. So he needs that. We'll see what happens. Okay, back to that quarter. You got Felix Auger-Aliassime in there. He's also going to have some fire on his feet after taking a loss to Flavio Cabelli in Canada and his home crowd. He couldn't find his serve at all and lost. And Cabelli played a great match. He's a funny kid. He's hilarious. He's a star. So Felix will be there playing a qualifier, and then he could play Ruud. And he's had Ruud's number this year. He beat him at the Olympics, and he beat him in Barcelona. Sorry, not Barcelona. Another one. I think Madrid. So that'll be interesting. Draper's in there. Struff, Berrettini, Mannarino, Monfils, Poprin. So dense draw. It's going to be interesting. As far as prediction, do I have a prediction? We're going to have to see how Montreal finishes up, how well Sinner's playing. If he comes in playing refreshed after missing the Olympics, you know, he might be I think he would be my favorite for this tournament based on the surface. I still believe he's the number one player in the world. I still believe he's definitely the best player on hard court. So it's going to be an interesting week and a half, 2 weeks here for Sinner, seeing what level he brings heading into the U.S. Open, finishing up in Montreal and in Cincinnati. So my prediction from that draw is Sinner to win, but it's going to be really interesting to see how Alcaraz can adjust after coming back from the yacht from the French to play in Cincinnati. Anyways, that's the slice. That's what you need to know. That's all the conditions in Montreal. You heard it here. And let me know your thoughts on the draws, Montreal and Cincinnati, down below. And again, thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing. That's the slice presented by Betway. We will see you next time.